Classification of skill helps us to kind of understand how we practice, how we train different things in different formats and different circumstances, because skills are different, right? We are basically saying here, the skills, they're all a bit different. We talk about sport or movement or activity or exercise. We talk about it as if it's one thing, but in reality, they're significantly different. And what we're going to do here is we're going to try and classify, for want of a better phrase, some of these sport and actions that I've got here, and then we can relate a lot of other examples as well. Now, the key thing for you to guys, I'm going to bring my ruler in here. The key things for you guys to grasp about classification is that we use a process, or we use something called continua. Okay, continua, and of course the singular of continua is a continuum. So here, guys, what we've got is we've got a continuum. Okay, and in this continuum, we're going to have sort of two extreme points to it. And in the first example, I'm going to introduce them to you as some skills and some movements are basic, and some skills and some movements are complex. Okay, so I want you to be sort of thinking around that terminology straight away, what that might mean to you and what you would use to sort of describe that as. And it might not necessarily be the thing that you're considering. If I start here, I'm actually going to start with complex, and I'm going to, let me choose a different color, sort of minty color. I'm going to sort of try and define this here. A complex skill is sport specific. Okay, a complex skill is sport specific. A complex skill is typically done by somebody who has experienced some kind of maturity, so an older child or indeed an adult. Okay, so more complex skills are generally done by people who are a bit bigger. Okay, well, what does that mean for our basic skills then? What are they? Well, our basic skills are generic. Okay, and this I think is going to unlock it for us, and they are generally speaking experienced by someone at an early age. Not only then, but most typically then. I'm going to give some examples of basic skills. What about these? Running. And I'm not talking about sprinting technique. I'm talking about running. I'm talking about throwing. I'm talking about what's happened there? I'm talking about jumping. These are what we would consider to be basic skills. All right, now let's go back to our complex sport specific done by people with maturity. What would these be? Well, running could be sprinting technique. Okay, sprinting technique is more complex. Okay, it does have a technical requirement. Let's take our throwing example. What about if I referred to that as bowling in cricket? Okay, bowling in cricket. What about if we were looking at jumping and I said, okay, we're going to talk specifically about high jump or triple jump or something like that? Can you see how the generic moves to the specific? Now, it goes without saying that all of the examples I've put up here, and I'm not going to drag them down at this point, would go in at this kind of complex end. Why? Because they are sport-specific moves. Could we describe this as kind of running and hitting in terms of the hockey? Well, yeah, we probably could, but it's also a lot more than that, okay? It's also a lot more than that. It's all kinds of more complex coordinated movements. Wonderful. Okay, so there's our complex, well, I suppose we call that our complexity continuum. Let's go a touch further. Let's bring our ruler in, and this time I'll stick with the yellow theme here. Why not? So let's do a second continuum here, and this time what are our extreme points going to be? Well, this time I'm going to label this end up here as fine skills, and I'm going to label this end down here gross skills. Okay, gross skills. Now, again, I wonder if these names immediately spring out to you what these do. So I'm going to say to you with the gross skills first. These skills involve large muscle groups. Okay, large muscle groups. Whereas something like fine skills, they involve small muscle groups. Think about muscles of, say, the fingers. Small muscle groups. And we describe fine movements as involving fine motor skills. And they tend to be focused on accuracy, precision, for example, okay? So think about skills where that might be the case, where accuracy and precision is absolutely the integral aspect of it. But with our gross skills, we tend to be we are talking about gross motor skills, and we tend to be talking about things that involve strength and power, or even we could describe CV endurance, cardiovascular endurance, or stamina might be a better way of putting that. Okay, well, I'll put CV endurance now, so I'll stick with it. Okay, so this is where we might consider this. Now, let's go back to our examples. What do we have? Well, we have kind of hockey playing here. And would you agree with me that if we were talking about just sort of running back into position to defend, that might be in here, running in hockey? Okay, but what if I said something like an Indian dribble, which is, of course, where you use the stick with a lot of very, very fine movements? Would that be more sort of down here? Indian dribble, for example. All right, so even within the same sport, we've kind of got this breakdown. Let's go back to our examples. We've got the idea of a gymnast here. Now, this is a really interesting one. I mean, we can see from her movement, this is an incredibly power-based movement. It's spectacular. Okay, it's a stunning thing. I tell you what, I mean, let's actually do this. Let's actually bring, where would we position this? So let's bring this down. I'm going to make the movement a bit, I'm going to make the image a bit smaller. Let's bring this down. I mean, are we saying it's here? Are we saying it's here? You're saying, well, I mean, what's your view? I'm just going to put that above here, and I'm going to kind of make a case before we position it. So the point I would make here is that there's definitely some gross motor skill involvement. It's based around powerful movement, for example. But hang on a second. It, by definition, is accurate and precise, because if she misses that beam, she is hitting the floor with her face, all right? So it's a bit of both, right? So could we argue, I mean, would we go straight down the middle? I'm not sure. I wrote those. You see those lines down there? I wrote them on the wrong layer. Would we put it in the middle? Would we put it towards here? And what you'll find in gymnastics is the gymnast is literally trading these things off. Okay, in this case, the more power, strength, spectacular move she goes up this end. What's the very thing she might lose? Accuracy, precision. And if she, of course, could be the same problem. If she moves to be more accurate and precise, what does she lose? The kind of the power and the strength moves. It's a really interesting point. So I'm gonna put her there in the middle, for example. Okay, so I'm gonna do it that way. Now I want to introduce you to one further continuum. Right? Sorry for giggling, but it makes you laugh sometimes when you mess things up on these kind of one-take recordings. I don't know. I always leave them in. Somehow I hope you kind of like it when I screw it up, right? So my last continua is like this. I'm going to introduce you to closed skills, and I'm going to introduce you to open skills. And these are really interesting, and I think we can get some real good work here. Let's go to closed first of all. We are saying a closed skill has a little, or down arrow, environmental, don't forget that N, environmental influence. Now that has got nothing to do with the weather or the climate, okay? What we're saying here is that a closed skill is the same every time. We can describe that as habitual or repetitive. Nothing in the environment is changing to cause this to be different. Whereas something like an open skill, it is an environmental, we could even call it a situational skill, an environmental. So it's got lots of environmental influence. It's therefore very changeable. It's therefore very changeable, and we can use the word adaptable. So let's have a think about this. See if I can drag down my examples again. Let's just go back. I mean, let's take the same one. Let's take our gymnast. I think it's a nice one to use. I think it's this layer here. So let's take our gymnast down. So where in the closed and open continuum would our gymnast be? Here. I'm going to claim it's here. Maybe not right to the end, but something like that. Why? That beam is not going to move. It's not going to change its surface. It's not going to change its width. She's not going to have wind that's going to blow across her. Nobody's trying to push her off. She's got no defender trying to stop her. This is a habitual, repetitive skill. Fine. Let's go back up. What have we got here? Let's go to this example. I'm going to bring this. I mean, let's call it games play. We've got hockey, but it could be any game for that matter. Let's bring this one down. Just bear with me a second. Where are they? Make it a bit smaller. So what about hockey? Closed, open. What do you think? I'm going to position up here, and the reason I'm going to position up here, guys, in my case, I believe if I think about this as the dribbling skill, okay, if she's dribbling the ball, that is. That skill has to be adaptable to the position of this defender, to the position of where her teammate is. Is there a player open for a pass and therefore she changes? That makes the environment change how she performs that skill and therefore makes it open. It's environmentally stimulated. So that's what we're talking about. Classification of skill. Thanks.